Well, hi everyone, and welcome, and thank you so much for joining Alzheimer Speaks Radio today. I am the host of Alzheimer Speaks, Lori LeBay, and Alzheimer Speaks really got started because my own mother had dementia for 30 years. She started having symptoms in her mid-50s, my age, and lived till 86. And because of her, I changed careers and have just been on this mission to raise everyone's voice regarding dementia. I just think it is critically important that we all work together and move dementia forward, move our care to a better place. People always ask who we are, what we do, and so I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on that. Again, this got started kind of as a grassroots effort, and it's been amazing to see the connections that have been made since I started Alzheimer Speaks back in 2009. Bottom line, we're just an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. And we truly believe that by joining forces and having these everyday conversations with dementia, that's really the only way we are going to be a force to reckon with, is to have these authentic conversations and allow everyone's voice to be heard, from those living and diagnosed with the disease, for those caring for them, as well as professionals and advocates, researchers, the whole 9 yards there. We also believe that collaboration is the only way we're going to win this battle, and we know that that's working thanks to each and every one of you. You see, every time you like or you share one of our platforms, if it's the radio show, if it's our blog, if it's the website, if it's our dementia chats, which is a video interview on this order with people with dementia, when you push that information out to your sphere, you are saying it's okay to have this conversation. It's okay to learn. It's okay to ask questions. And to me, that's really, truly what is needed. And so, thanks to all of your sharing, you got Alzheimer Speaks recognized as the #1 influencer online, according to Dr. Oz and ShareCare. Recently, we were just acknowledged by Oprah just this last month as a health hero, and last fall Maria Shriver said we're an architect of change. And all of those acknowledgments, they're really not me, they're all of us working together to make a difference, because none of this would happen without this team effort. So those are kudos to the impact that we're having, because everything we do here on Alzheimer Speaks is on a shoestring budget. There actually is no budget. It's just kind of this word of mouth and really honest, authentic collaborations that we're having with different people, again, at all different levels around the world, people that really, truly want to make a difference. Now, before I introduce our guest today, I do want to just do a little bit more housekeeping, because it is the new year. We made it through another one. I just want to acknowledge what a wonderful year that it's been. And I hope that all of you have kind of a smile on your face for the passing of one more year. And I hope your minds and hearts are filled with lessons learned from 2017 that'll help you move forward in 2018 in the years to come. And we just all here hope that you are filled with blessings way beyond your imagination in the years to come here. So cheers to everybody for making it through what a lot of people think was a pretty turbulent year. I also want to thank every single one of our listeners and our followers, people who have shared content, people who have been a co-host with me, a guest, people who have sponsored me to go around speaking. I just so appreciate working with everyone. Again, we are thrilled to be acknowledged by Oprah for being one of 14 people as a health hero. I am extraordinarily just so honored to work with all the people living with dementia out there and seeing the number of voices that are being raised and how significant that circle has grown. I mean, there's just so many more people this year than there was last year, than there was the year before, who are speaking up and not ashamed and not afraid anymore. And I just honor you, because I think without you, the movement would not be going as fast a pace as it is. You guys truly are the educators, and we need more and more voices that need to be heard. You know, we took our dementia-friendly cruise, and again, the people that came, the people that were part of our program team, you know, 4 people with dementia, basically were our leaders, along with, you know, myself, Cindy Lazinski, and Becky Watson, who is a music therapist. But the voices that were really listened to were our panelists: Carrie Urban, Michael Ellenbogen, Lori Shearer, and Mary Reed. And the voices that came together, the families, the closeness, and the community that was built during those 7 days was extraordinary. And so I'm looking forward to being able to do some more dementia-friendly travel in the future, but we'll be doing it under our own name, either Alzheimer Speaks or Dementia Travel with Lori LeBay. I also am really grateful that we were able to be part of Maria Shriver's Move for the Minds event in Irvine, California, for the women's Alzheimer's movement. That was just such an honor to be able to meet her and be one of her panelists there. The extraordinary team here that we have, not only on Alzheimer Speaks Radio, with, again, too many people are guest co-hosts with me, and the number of guests that we have, there's just too many to mention. But we also do, again, dementia chats, and the power of their voices. If you haven't heard them, you need to listen to them, because it's pretty fabulous. And I'm just going to name off this last year who's been on the program: Harry Urban, Michael Ellenbogen, Lori Shearer, Mary Reed, Brian LeBlanc, Craig Hankey, Bob Savage, Truthful Loving Kindness, Susan Session, Mary Ranofsky, Paulan Gordon, who's with us today, and Scott Drevs, who's with us today as well. And I also have to thank Alon Caspi, who is my co-facilitator on those. Those interviews are used around the world, and people are really, really listening, so that's very cool. I also need to thank all the contributors and writers for Alzheimer Speaks blog. We have to give a special shout out to Carol Larkin, who has done a lot of articles that really gets people thinking, and to all of you that have written stories and shared your poetry with us. It's amazing the number of people you touch around the world, so keep that stuff coming. I'm also really thankful for our grassroots dementia-friendly movement in Roseville, Minnesota, called the Alzheimer's and Dementia Community Action Team. And this year, you know, we have just such a great team. We work with the city, the library system, the school district, and the senior center. And this year we kicked out monthly educational programs, which are free to the community and surrounding areas. The library system put together memory minder kits, which can be signed out by people with dementia and their care partners. We kicked off a dementia caregiver reentry program, and we also created a travel kit which covers local to international travel for people, some tips and various things. I've also been blessed to work with the Care to Plan group, which is developing a dementia-friendly or dementia resource directory, which is in beta testing right now, which you can find on the Alzheimer Speaks website if you go to our resource directory tab. Calendar cards, I have to thank them, because they are a memory system program, but they've devised a a directory for memory cafes in the US. It's very easy to use. It's no cost to people who have a memory cafe, and Dave will just input that for you free. And again, that can be found at memorycafedirectory.com. The Call Alert Center, which can be used for care partners if you're worried that somebody might wander, but they have systems for pets, for children, for students, for travelers, and through Alzheimer's Speaks, you can get a 20% discount on that program, and it's only, I mean, it's minor dollars a year. I want to say it's under $15 a year, plus a discount on top of that, and it really works cool. They just put together a new little video that you might want to check out. You can see that on our site. And then for those of you that aren't familiar with the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, they're just doing some really great work. They take a holistic approach. So they're about meditation and exercise and diet, and they do a lot of great educational forums and have some wonderful products that you might want to check out. We've also been very blessed to have a lot of media coverage this year, from the O magazine to Next Avenue, the Good Age magazine, the LA Times, the American Senior magazine. We were honored to be interviewed 5 different times by Margaret Manning from Switzerland with 60andMe for a kind of a dementia series too. She's just a wonderful woman doing some cool things. We were able to be part of the Media Planet special edition on Alzheimer's, which was a great honor as well. We made the Healthline Best Blog again this year, not best blog, but one of the best blogs. I think the Reading Room, Alzheimer's Reading Room, might have gotten #1, but I'm not positive on that. And then the Alzheimer's and Dementia Weekly, we were in several radio shows and podcasts, also featured our work. And again, when I say our work, I mean, I literally mean all of our work, because again, I truly believe it is not one of us that is doing this alone. So I am going to get off my soapbox now, but I just really want you to know how filled with gratitude I am to be working and being touched by so many people around the world. It's really quite fascinating. So today I have a co-host all the way from the Netherlands. And Geert, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you to be with you, because I excuse my English is not so good. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm not an expert in Alzheimer. I think the only experts are you. You are the experts. And like Laurie says, she says, we need more voices. I think we need more ears. We need more ears to listen to you, to listen to Paulan, for example, because you are the ones who really know what it means to have or to be somebody with Alzheimer. So I want to listen to you a lot. A short introduction for myself. I'm a social worker. I was a social worker, I was a nurse, and I was a teacher. I worked with children, and I worked with elderly people and people with dementia, and I gave lessons at the nursery school and the well-being school. And I wrote a book indeed. It's the title's Moving On by Standing Still. That's my passion. Mostly we are running around people, and we are running around in the nursery homes. We are running, and I think stop running. Keep still, stand still, and please try to listen. So I think I have to be very, how you say, I'm not the leader, you're the leader. You have to lead me, you have to guide me, I think. People with dementia, people with psychiatric problems, everyone, they can guide me, and I have to listen. And that's my book is written about. It's many stories from what I heard. And that's one thing I also don't like. We call people with problem behavior, and I hate the word problem behavior. For me, it's signal behavior. I think when we say that, just Scott or Paulan, you're Problem, you don't have problem behavior. I think we have problem behavior as workers. You are clear. Of course you are clear in what you want and what you like. We have to do more effort to hear what you want, to hear what you like. So I'm a small boy in front of you. I feel like that. Thank you. That's my introduction.
Okay, great. Thank you. Paulan, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Paulan Gordon. I was diagnosed with vascular dementia 5 years ago, and that was, I was age 57 at the time, so I was a youngster. What some people don't know, a lot of people don't know, is that my father died from Alzheimer's about 10 years ago. And also I've seen it from both sides. I've been very active as an advocate and an author. I've written a book called Vascular Dementia, An Inside Perspective. And I have been involved with the Dementia Mentors program as a mentor with newly diagnosed individuals who need some additional one-on-one support. And I'm also on the advisory council and the board of directors for Dementia Action Alliance, which is also a wonderful organization. So I just try to take any opportunity that I can to further the education and knowledge about people living with dementia and how they can best maneuver their way.
Wonderful. Thank you. Scott, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Scott Drevs. I was diagnosed at 45 with front temporal lobe dementia. My grandfather, on my father's side, and my uncle both had dementia, and they both passed fairly early in life. That's my history. I'm 52 now. Well, I'll be 52 this month. First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Lori, for giving us a platform, you know, and a place to teach and learn. If it wasn't for you and people like you, I don't know where we would be. You've inspired me, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Well, you inspire many. You've only been on a couple of our dementia chats so far, and like everyone else, you know, kudos comes out automatically, you know, from response when people watch and listen to the just powerful comments and insights, and so much of it, I think, is just breaking that barrier down of a person with dementia can't have a conversation, you know, can't have input, and I think people are shocked because if, you know, they're looking at the screen right now, they would not know who has the disease, you know, they just wouldn't know, couldn't tell, and that throws people for a loop because that's not what society has taught them. And so I think, like Geert is saying, that has to change. You know, people have to learn that, you know, we are all dealing with different things that don't always show, but that doesn't mean they're not real, and that we have to be respectful and know that everybody can still participate in life. And that is you know, when you come to realize that, it's just such a huge gift once you stop judging. You know, when you stop feeling that need to judge. I think with, you know, the journey with my mom, I think I was probably a lot more judging before. Not that I don't do it now. You know, I'm not Little Miss Perfect all the time, but I think I'm a heck of a lot better. And I don't hold the torch to things being perfect. You know, if it's a person or if it's just situations in my life, I don't believe in perfection anymore. I think it's a myth, and I think it's a real slippery slope that traps us into something that's not real, you know, that can't be met, that makes us, you know, want to beat one another, be in competition instead of being in gratitude with one another, or, learning to appreciate other people's success. I've never understood how people can't be proud of something someone else is doing. I've never understood that. But there's a lot of people that get angry when someone else, gets a pat on the back or did something that they couldn't do, when we're all different. We've always been different. And none of us are going to have the same skill sets. None of us have the same backgrounds. And yet we're taught we're all supposed to be the same. And we're supposed to be at this level. And then we're supposed to be going for this level. And dementia just has really taught me to look at life very, very differently. I'm going to throw this first to Paulan and Scott, and then I'll go back to you, Geert. But Paulan, has dementia had you look at life differently in terms of, in some ways, do you have more of a peacefulness within you at times?
I think I do. I think that you bring up, excuse me, a good point about that dementia is an invisible disease, especially in the earlier stages. You can't look at somebody and tell that they have dementia, and there's no way to people sometimes think that people with dementia are of limited intelligence, and that's so far from the truth. I know so many people that are extremely intelligent that have dementia: doctors, lawyers, nurses, teachers, just the whole gamut. And so I want to make sure that people understand that, and that they will listen to the people with dementia, because they have a lot to say, and they have an insight that other people don't have. And we can work together to educate people and to make the world a better place for people living with dementia.
May I ask a question, Laurie, to Paulan?
Sure.
Paulan, I heard you wrote a book. Was it a book about dementia?
It was a book about my experience with dementia. It was called Vascular Dementia: An Inside Perspective. And it was it was not a technical book. It was just about some of the experiences I have had as a person living with dementia. And I have shared that with quite a few people, and they've enjoyed that.
Beautiful. And how long ago you wrote that book?
I don't remember now. I guess it's been about 3 years. About 3 years ago.
I'm very. Suppose you should write a new book now. Would it be a different book from 3 years ago?
It would be a different book. It would be talking more about the strategies I've taken to compensate for my dementia, and the different ways that might be helpful to other people living with dementia. Instead of just talking about my experience, I would talk about compensatory measures and strategies for living well with dementia.
Okay. I will try to read it. I'm very curious about that book. Yes.
Yeah, well, and a lot of doctors are utilizing that now with their patients for vascular dementia, which is wonderful, because we all know there's not enough information that's given out at that time. Scott, how about you? Since you've been diagnosed with dementia, do you think you look at life differently?
Well, yeah, definitely. Well, I feel a lot more vulnerable than I ever have in my life. I've always, kind of been a strong personality and a strong person, and I see my weaknesses, and I'm aware of my limitations, and struggle sometimes to deal with that and to adjust for it. It can be painful at times. It can be embarrassing. We are aware, more aware than people give us credit for sometimes. Even though we may not be able to verbalize it or really show it, but it's there. Being as young as I am, I also, there's so many people that are, well, no, you can't have it, or you don't have it, you're misdiagnosed, or, and until they see me in those vulnerable situations where I can't control my emotions, or I can't communicate or really even deal with the situations, then that shows a little bit. But and so that's kind of a curse and a blessing at the same time. One is that I can fairly function pretty well in the community without any issues or anybody noticing, but then the expectations of that people have on me, because I am fairly, I function fairly well, can be too much. I'm not always going to be on time. Excuse me. I'm not always going to be able to do what I wanted to do or said I was going to do. It's hard to keep up with, day-to-day life sometimes. Living in Wisconsin, the cold weather, this winter has been terrible on me. I don't enjoy it like I did, some years ago.
Scott,
The garbage man just came to pick up garbage.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I'm going to put you.
May I ask a question, Scott?
Sure.
Yes, Scott. I heard you say I had a strong personality. You had, or you had?
Well, I think I still kind of have a stronger personality. I mean, some things don't change, but I am more. I think it's helped me to settle a little bit and not set these high expectations for other people or myself. I mean, that's just me personally. I feel like I'm apologizing a lot more than I ever did in my entire life.
Yes, I hear that. I hear that, and I heard you tell me your parents also had dementia, no?
My uncle on my dad's side and my grandfather on my dad's side, and my dad is, I think, 81, and he has dementia, though he hasn't been diagnosed with it, but you can tell.
Okay.
But he just started to show recently.
Okay. And then what can we learn from you, Scott? What is the most important thing?
Oh boy, that's a question that I haven't thought about. I don't know. I think if I can do anything, it would be like Lori. Lori is a wonderful advocate, and she's her platform is getting out to a lot of people and educating a lot of people. And I was blessed to be called to go to her cruise, and I learned a lot there, and that encouraged me to do more, to be involved more, and to, while I still can, help, educate, and I've got some pet projects that I'm working on to try to help people live with the disease a little bit easier and able to stay in their homes.
So you can help the nurses and you can help the care workers. You are a care worker plus, no? You are
Well,
a care worker
I don't
plus.
know that I'm a caregiver.
Yes.
I'm blessed to have a lovely woman that takes very well care of me and
Yes.
helps me stay focused. But
you also help many people now, no?
Say that.
I'm trying to.
Sorry.
Oh, I was going to have you repeat that because I wasn't sure everyone understood you.
Yeah, so I think like Scott and Paulan, they are the best helpers we have. They help us. We don't help them. They help us. They help us to understand. They help us to how to deal not with dementia, no, how we can make communication with Paulan, how we can make communication with Scott. I don't like to have to communicate with dementia. I want to communicate with Scott. I want to communicate with Paulan, you know? Communication with dementia is nothing. But I think with Scott or with Paulan, it's very nice to communicate with. Thank you.
I think people living with dementia are in a unique position to educate others.
Yes.
Because there are so many misconceptions about dementia.
Yes.
And like Scott was saying, you know, people will look at you and say, well, you don't look like you have dementia. Well, there's no way to look like you have dementia. And it's only through our voices that we can help people understand the disease.
We do also the doctors listen to you?
I'm sorry? What?
Do also doctors and specialists really listen to you?
They don't listen as much as they should, unfortunately.
Yes.
They tend to be dictatorial, you know, like, and I was really frustrated. I recently moved from Ohio to Arizona, and I have a new neurologist. So my first meeting with him, the first thing he did was he said, is her husband with her? And I said, yes. And they said, bring him in. And they proceeded to ask him all the questions about my functioning. And I'm sitting there trying my best to keep my mouth shut because it was very difficult. But I was so upset with that approach. You know, why don't you ask me?
Yes.
Don't ask my husband. I think my husband was kind of flustered about it too because he knew how I felt about it. So the next time I went to the neurologist, my husband didn't go.
You forbid him?
We're going to solve this problem one way or another.
So how did the doctor take that?
He did pretty well with it. You know, he did tell me to make a change in medication, and he said, "Now, are you going to remember that?" And I said, "Yes, I'm going to remember that." You know, but it was the doctors really need a lot of education in terms of how to be empathetic with people living with dementia and how to understand them and communicate with them.
Yeah. Well, and even come up with a system. Like, would you like me to also shoot an email reminder to you and your husband? I mean, something so simple that could be done, you know, or printing out a form, or I'm giving you I mean, just to make sure that it works. Did you mention to him how uncomfortable you were the first time and why your husband wasn't there the second time?
I didn't. He's like got degrees all over the place and everything, gerontology, psychiatry, neurology, all these things. And he's very busy and very abrupt. So, you know, he's like a very busy person, and I'm too busy to spend much time with you, but here's the few minutes I will spend with you, and we'll go on our way. So I'm still working with him. I don't know. We'll have to see where it goes from here.
Mm-hmm. It's sad that we allow people to hide behind those titles, you know, because there's, you know, the compassion, the empathy, just the being personal. I mean, we all have busy lives. If we have titles or not, we all have way too much crap on our plate. No matter who we are, you know, there's just this world moves way too fast. And, you know, to me, the critical piece is that piece of respect and understanding and being actually heard, you know, not just listened to in a quick fashion. I mean, anybody can listen, but to be heard is a whole nother piece, you know?
You know, and you wonder sometimes, what if this man develops dementia down the road? You know, what is he going to think about all of this and how he treated his patients and all of that? I'd be interested, Scott, in hearing what your experience has been with doctors. Do you have a good doctor that you feel comfortable with?
Are you asking me, Pauline? Scott?
I
am. The original doctor that diagnosed me specialized with dementia, and then she moved on to another state. She was very thorough and very compassionate, and it's an amazing woman. I don't know that I should say her name, but the new doctor that I have doesn't specialize in dementia. She does mostly MS, and so that's the problem. I live in Northeast Wisconsin, and there's really nobody around within a couple, 500 miles, or more, that specializes just with dementia. So I'm kind of at a standstill when it comes to that. That's been a frustration for me for a while, that, I don't feel I'm really getting the care that I could have. But what you said about being disregarded, and that happens a lot. I mean, that happens in nursing homes, that happens with the doctors, like the experience that you had. We have a voice. We can answer for ourselves.
Yeah, but when you have no ears around, the voice has no use.
Right. We know what we're going through better than our caregivers do sometimes.
Yes.
And, so I think that's a big issue when it comes to people with dementia and Alzheimer's, especially when they get in the stages where they are less verbal. And people aren't taking the time to really hear them or
true.
Let them express. They think, okay, now they don't know. They don't know anything, but they do. It's there.
I agree, Scott. Really, I agree. Do you also, Paulan and Scott, you feel betrayed like a child sometimes?
Do I feel betrayed by what?
Like a child. You feel betrayed like a child by the doctors.
Oh yes, treated like a child. Yes.
Treated, that is the word.
Yes, exactly. I do. And to Scott's point, this particular doctor is a memory care specialist. This is his field and his priority. So that makes it even worse. Now, the doctor I had before that was he was like what Scott is saying. He was a neurologist, but he tended to want to focus on things that are curable. And I think they want to accomplish, and they don't want to just reach out to people as on a personal level. That's what's really missing is that personal connection.
Personal connection, yes. So yeah. It's horrible. It's horrible that always the people, specialists, always try to treat you like a child. I hear that many times, but you are an adult. You have a full life. And I know you now for about 30 minutes, and I really admire you both. The way you tell, the way you be there. And I think you are strong personalities. And a doctor, he has to listen to you with his heart, not only with his brains. Mm-hmm. With his heart, because you have so much to tell. So it's horrible. And in the Netherlands, it's quite the same. Quite the same. That's why I wrote this book. Please listen. Please stop running. Please stop being the specialist, because every one of us wants to be treated like a human being.
Well, the other thing that I think when we're communicating with the doctors is we have to communicate with the whole team. Because a lot of times it's easier to get to the nurse, or their assistant and say, hey, I know he doesn't have time for me, but hopefully you will. And this is what's really going on, and how my family is, how we're working this. And we need you to respect that, and how best can we work with you. But that's what we did with my mom's doctor. And he was wonderful, but his nurse was, just absolutely superb, because she told us how to work the system. And she's like, you get me the notes, that you want covered, and we'll have them addressed. And so as a family, we could ask questions sometimes that if I would bring them up in in a meeting with my mom as she progressed, she'd get angry, at us, and then we'd have to go home for a fight for, it was amazing what she could hold on to for a while, when she was mad. And so he would bring things up just in general terms so we could all move forward and it was better for us. Or it was important, for us to make sure that the doctor always included mom in on the conversation, that she wasn't just sitting there in the chair and never even being looked at. I mean, because some doctors do that too, and it's just like how offensive that is, and how uncomfortable that is for the care partner as well as the person with dementia. To always be inclusive and point that question there first, and then we can go from there. I wanted to, because we were talking about respect, and I think how people, sometimes professionals, and I think families, can look at this disease. And when I was kind of reviewing the past year, I pulled out a poem that was written and submitted by Elena LeClaire, and it's called A Rose in the Snow. And I think it shows the standards and the setups of what people tell us we're supposed to expect from this disease, and how brilliant a small child is. That we need to listen to them too. So it's called A Rose in the Snow. His dazed, tired eyes were far away in the deep blue oceans where once he played. But the little girl beside him prays that one day he'll remember her name. It seemed more certain for a rose to bloom in ice-cold winter snow than for her grandfather to recall the name of a little girl who waits in faith. We are all casting her hope away, trying to tell her to cope, to ease the pain of the little girl who longs for a rose in the snow. Then one night, grandfather sat next to the window that displayed a crescent moon. I'm going to get emotional. He turned away his face from it to look across the room. He smiled at her. She ran to him. He gently caressed her face. Then he leaned over, and in her ear, he slowly whispered her name. Her smile was such that its radiance could now outshine the moon, and somewhere on earth, a snow-filled mountain, a rose emerged in bloom. And I just think that that's so beautiful, because this little girl was told to give up hope. And I think as a society, we teach that, and it's so wrong. There are connections so deep and so beautiful that will never, ever go away. But we can't find them if we don't look for them.
Thank you, Laurie.
Here I go.
Who authored that, Lori?
It was a gal by the name of Elena LeClaire, and it's just one of the beautiful poems that people submit. The stories they tell of their love, their discomfort, their whatever it is they're going through. Dementia isn't one emotion. It's a roller coaster like the rest of life, yet everybody thinks it's, everything's supposed to become stagnant and it's supposed to be controllable. Well, life wasn't controllable before dementia. So we have to stop thinking that we're going to control it now.
I was just going to add that I think we sometimes, even people who are in the more advanced stages, as my father was with Alzheimer's, they discard them and say they can't understand and they can't communicate, but they may not be able to communicate as well as they should or were able to in the past. They still have a heart and they still have feelings and they still do have understanding and can be reached at different levels. I think music is a wonderful way to touch people with dementia, especially at the more advanced levels, where this brings back their memories and their personhood back to them. And I've seen it in nursing homes when they bring in a pianist or somebody, and all of a sudden all these people who were ranting and raving or whatever they were doing calm down, and
Calm down, yes.
they sing.
Yes, calm down.
And I think we give up too much on people, and we have
Stop
to give
running.
them opportunities.
Yeah, stop running, and then take time. And there's one important question I want to ask you, Paula and Scott. I heard you say people with dementia, they cannot communicate well. I think you can. I think communication is for two people, the people who speaks and the people and the person who hears. So I think you communicate very well. Also, when you have dementia in a very bad way, it's more difficult for us to understand what you mean. But you are clear. And I think we have to do all the efforts to understand you. And if that's by music or by touching or by just sitting beside you, I think you communicate very well. That's my opinion about communication with people with dementia.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's way more than words, and yet
Yes.
society and families especially try to force a person with dementia to spit it out. Give me a sentence, give me the right words, give me the right dates, give me the right times. And it's not about being right or wrong. It's about being fully engaged, and that means looking at all the nonverbal responses. That means appreciating, like you said, Geert, sometimes just sitting next to somebody in silence can bring so much joy and peace.
Yes.
And a word's not spoken, you might not even touch. It doesn't make any difference, but there's that exchange of energy, that presence of being.
I think the contact without words is more deep.
Yeah.
Also in a normal life, no?
Yep. Yeah. Well, yeah, because things a lot of times people will say one thing, but we're reading a whole nother thing with their nonverbals, and it can get confusing. Scott?
Yeah, Lori, you just hit on something that I was going to bring up also, is that I know myself, I do isolate. I don't like to put myself out there as much as I used to. I used to be fairly outgoing. I isolate a little bit more. And what happens is, because it's uncomfortable, family members and friends. I mean, I've lost just about every friend I had before I was diagnosed. I rarely speak to any of them because I don't think they know how to communicate with me, or look at me the same way, or I don't know what it is, but I hear that a lot, that a lot of people lose their friends.
Yes.
Because but they also, you lose family because the family gets uncomfortable. I'm lucky because I still live in a home. And we reach out, Chandra and I reach out to our children and keep them involved. But a lot of these people that are institutionalized one way or another, they lose family. It's uncomfortable to go into a hospital or go into a home, a nursing home or whatnot, and so they avoid it. So then here you are, you're isolating anyway, and then you are being isolated from the people that matter to you, because it's uncomfortable for them. What you were saying is absolutely right on. Just having that conversation, just being there, just sharing. If you're sitting there watching television with them, or reading them a book or whatnot, the options are endless. But that's my biggest fear, is that when I get to that point, that I'm going to be alone. That's my biggest fear, is that people are going to stop coming around and stop involving me in their life because it's uncomfortable.
I can understand. Yes, yes, yes. But is it you have to go to a nursery home once? Is that the perspective? You think you have to go once to a nursery home?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that.
In the future, you think you can stay at home all your life, or there is a moment you have to go to a nursery home?
I don't know. My grandfather and my uncle were both able to stay home.
Okay.
Those were different times, but I don't know. I don't know if Chandra's going to be able to keep up with my needs by herself. You know, that's something I'm trying to do, get involved in locally to help those people, the caregivers, get a break away or get some assistance that is affordable, you know, to be able to help out a little bit. Those are some of the things that I am looking forward to this year, trying to do in my community. But I think it does come to a point that most of us, I would say the majority of us with dementia or Alzheimer's, end up in a home, because it is hard for our children to raise their kids, live their life, do their job, you know, and still be able to take care of us the right way, you know. So I'm not opposed to that ever happening. I would understand why it would happen, but when it does, it seems like then that's kind of it. You know, people stop coming around, and there you are. You just left there to kind of finish off your days.
I will pray for you. You never end in a nursery home.
Well, thank you.
You're such a beautiful person. You know, when you told this, there was a song in my head. It was, "He ain't heavy, he's my brother." You know, and I think the people in your neighborhood and also with Paulan, we have to think, he ain't heavy, he's my brother. So never end in a nursery home in the United States, because I heard it is horrible in the United States. In the Netherlands, it's much more better. So
a lot of times what people do is something similar than what I've done is my husband and I have moved in with my daughter. We sold our house and we moved into my daughter's house, and she built a casita for us, added onto her home. And I know a lot of people who have gone with their sisters or their other relatives. And I think that can be a good alternative. But I think what's really a shame is when I see people in nursing homes and they are neglected, as far as their personal needs. So I think it's important that while we still can, we clarify what's important to us and what our needs are and what our expectations are when we're not able to speak for ourselves. What do we like? What do we not like? There are applications that do that. I know people who are making videos of themselves saying what it is they want. And I think that that's a really important thing to be able to do however you do it, whether you write it, video it, do it in software, whatever.
yes.
I was just going to throw in the comment that I think another important thing is to let people know what you want in terms of services. So if it's in-home services, if it's memory care, if it's a nursing home, my mom was a rare one who asked to move to the nursing home, but she asked to move to the nursing home because my dad ended up being there. And the plan was for her to always stay with us. And after about 2 weeks, and we got along great, and always had, and she was very comfortable in my home. She woke up one morning totally clear and just said, "I want to move to the nursing home." And out of my mouth came, "But that's not the plan." we had the family meeting, we talked to the attorneys, we talked to the financial people. I mean, I thought we had done our homework. And I said, Mom, why would you want to move into the nursing home? Nobody wants to move into a nursing home. But she said, I've been with him 49 and a half years and I'm not leaving him now. And so my dad only lasted a couple of months, but during that couple of months, Mom got very acclimated. She ended up living there 14 years. And she, she loved living there. I mean, it was actually a very great environment. Staff would take her for walks and she would just refer to going for a walk with a friend, So I think in every country there's pros and cons, there's good and there's really bad, out there. There's a really wide range, but we, I think as a society can impact that if we're involved, if we speak up. I mean, there were many times I didn't like what was going on and I spoke up. And I'll give one little example. We had raised some money and we put in this big fountain, and it was this beautiful cement patio with this big pond and fountain and fire pit, and it was just gorgeous. And they were going to take all the people that lived in the nursing home permanently and move them to the back side because they were going to add transitional care, and all the transitional care was going to get this beautiful view. And I went in to the director and I said, that is so wrong. It's not even funny. The people that are going to have this view get to leave in, a week to three months. And you're putting everybody looking out the back alley, which is just a fence. I said, you should be ashamed of yourself. And he's like, well, we have social workers and family. And I'm like, you know what? You're not selling me with this pitch. They will still all see it. They still can all appreciate it. They're in transitional care. They can get out to it. But, to take that away, I just said it was horrible. So the administrator ended up calling his boss and said, there really isn't much we can do. This was kind of the plan. He says, but Lori's looked at the back. We have 3 feet by the fence. What can we do? And she suggested putting up bird feeders and planting flowers, and they did. And it looked gorgeous. And you didn't even know the road was there anymore. And then you'd go by those rooms and people were there and they were watching the birds and they were watching the squirrels or watching the flowers bloom. Just little things that can have a huge impact that don't have to take a lot of time or a lot of money to maintain, but bring back that human piece of serenity. Just having something pretty to look at is a very respectful minor change, to be able to deal with. So I think some of it is how we view things and making sure that we speak up and ask for those changes, to be made.
Yeah, but I think that it's okay when we have nursery home, but when we have nursery institute or nursery hospital, please let it be a nursery home. Completely different from institutions. And in the Netherlands, you see nursery homes, 6 to 8 people in one house, they live together. And it's completely different. They cook together, they work together. They have dementia, but there are 6 to 8 people in one house. That feels like a home. But when you have 34 people in one corridor, it's horrible.
Well, I disagree with that a little bit because we have a law, and this brings me back to when I was in my 20s and I worked with the developmentally disabled. And back then they were called mentally retarded. And I worked for a community that was, I want to say 3 stories, and we had like 120 people in it. And at that time, our state, Minnesota, was breaking down all the big hospitals, moving people into the community, and this was a larger entity, and so now they wanted to break that down and get it into a small group home. And I have to tell you, I was very resentful of the state because they, like we would do group showers and shaving and all this stuff, and they were like, oh, that's not personal and that's not. And I said, you have no idea how much fun we have back here. It's like going to college and you're all in there, you're singing in the bathroom, you're taking turns, and stop making it into something that it's not. And observe what's actually happening. You know, there was a sense of community, and not that that can always happen. It depends on the team you have. But, you know, that can happen in a big family or a small family, you know. We have to be really careful how we judge that and what really is happening. I mean, the people were very happy. Nobody was neglected. It wasn't anything about that. It was about the state making judgment on what they felt was right or wrong. And yet none of them were there 24/7 and really experienced and got the feeling of the camaraderie that can happen if it's developed and if it's allowed. And I'm not saying that happens all the time, but it sure as heck can. You know, and so I think we have to be really careful on what works, you know, because sometimes we can break into small communities and maybe people won't communicate, or those personalities won't get along, you know. And when you have a bigger group to pick from, you can mix it up and match, and people can sit by the sidelines if they're not comfortable to be part. And some people just like to observe and not be part. You know, and so I think we have to be, careful with some of that stuff.
It's okay.
Well, I think we have to remember that everybody is unique. People with dementia are not lumped into this group. Everybody with dementia is unique in their needs and their desires. And for some people, the home might be very comforting, and they will feel like their family is not burdened, and you know, that they're, I guess what I'm trying to say is I just think it's important that each person with dementia is treated as an individual, and that their desires are well known.
Yes.
Yeah. And everybody's sense of family is very different, you know. And so what we think is the ideal family and that we're trying to create might be really foreign to what they're used to. And so that, you know, that all that stuff can come into play. And I mean, I like, you know, when my dad was in the nursing home, it wasn't as segregated, and there was a wide variety of people. And my mom could not go up onto that floor. They were going to have her live on his floor. And I'm like, there's no way. She would have been terrified, because people would come in and grab her purse, or, you know, give me a nickel for the train, or, you know, it was all kinds of stuff. And she wouldn't have done well up there, because there was such a diverse level of types of disease that was happening, and degeneration of the brain, where she was better on a higher functioning, more social. And I hate to even say higher functioning, because it was really just more social, and their levels of socialization were all really different. You know, again, one of the stories when I was looking back, kind of in trying to be grateful, I was looking back at stories on the blog, and one was of a woman who had passed, who had befriended my mom, and she was 104 years old. And my mom had probably been in the nursing home maybe, I would say maybe 10 years. And so she was just getting into kind of her very final stages. And I was so sad when this woman had passed, because she had taken such good care of my mom. You know, she just befriended her, and, you know, she was really appeared very healthy, and though she must have had some issues, but not to the degree my mom did at all. And she was just like my mom's best friend, you know, and cared for her. And I just thought how sweet that was. And
Beautiful.
You know, yeah.
Beautiful. 104 years old.
What was that?
104 years old she was.
Yeah. And she just this short, little, cute, little spunky thing, and then she took a fall, and then it was kind of downhill from there. But she was just brilliant. She was just one of those people that you would love to just take home, you know.
Better than the best nurse.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, I
Well,
know. Go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to add, I think you kind of hit it there earlier. These are conversations that we should be having early on. Like, I think you made a good point there, that that's a conversation that needs to happen. What type of place, what are you comfortable with,
Yes.
in aftercare, that, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
It's a conversation that needs to be said.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it has to be, even when we go around and tour to get ideas, we really have to get to what makes you feel comfortable. Not the setting, not the structure, but I think it's really that sense of inner peace that we have to talk about in what is making that come out. Is it the smaller environment, or was it the interactions that you saw between people? And if so, what types of interactions,
That's
was it?
most important, the type of interaction.
Yeah.
It's personalized also. So I think it's the most important. A contact. What is the contact? The value of the contact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
And knowing that can change too with staff turnover.
Yeah.
That can have, or a sale of a company and philosophy changes. I mean, nothing is stagnant. And so, what happens in those cases too? I know with my mom, for her last 3 years in the home, they had a significant staff change, and they never really recaptured what they had. They lost 3 significant staff, and so much history was lost. And yet, as a daughter, I kind of analyzed things, and I didn't feel like mom would do well if we just pulled her up in her end stages and put her in a whole different environment with a whole different routine. So we stayed. And to this day, I don't know if that was the right decision. And was it more my discomfort, or was she really feeling it? I mean, those are things we have to sort out and talk about too, because one of the things somebody had just asked me to talk about when it comes to this movie, His Neighbor Phil, and I changed the verbiage a little bit in it, but it was about protection and perceptions, because a lot of times the care partner thinks that they're protecting you, and the perceptions from others is very different.
Does it also has to do with feeling guilty?
I think it can be feeling guilty. I think it can be sometimes embarrassment. Oh, we don't want the person to feel embarrassed, but maybe it's them. And maybe nobody should feel embarrassed, and maybe that's what we have to teach people.
Yes.
Instead of hiding, or like Scott had mentioned about being isolated. And I get all that, because sometimes it's just too much work.
Maybe I can ask Paulan and Scott. Is there a kind of guilt in you because people are helping you? What do you think, Paulan?
I think, again, it really needs to be a lot of two-way conversations while you're able to have those conversations about what you want. And a nursing home can be a wonderful place for people. Maybe they, it's just so individual, and I think it's important to have those conversations early.
Yes, but with your family, with your children, with your husband, or you feel you are, how I say that? Yeah, guilt. I don't think guilt is the right English word, but I don't know the right word. You feel you are too heavy for other people.
What do you think, Scott?
I think I don't know about guilt. I think there's some, it can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do feel like a little bit of a burden.
What?
I know I've had a few episodes at some events, like my son's graduation, where the emotion of the whole thing and seeing some people that I used to help coach wrestling, for example. So all these kids are coming up to me, these other coaches, in the whole emotion, the whole thing. I kind of had a hard time keeping it together. I did until I got outside, and then I just bawled like a baby. I'll be honest about it. It was extremely emotional, hard for me to keep everything together, and I don't know that there's anything I could have or anybody else could have done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I've felt guilty, but I have definitely felt uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable, yes, yes. Yes, I can understand. Uncomfortable, yes. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and do you ever feel, I don't know if denied's probably not the right word either, but where someone's doing too much for you
Yes, yes, like that.
and you'd rather be more independent? Do you ever feel kind of squashed?
You ask me?
No, I'm sorry, I'm throwing this back to Paulan and Scott.
Go
Well,
ahead,
I don't feel guilty. I mean, I don't feel that way. I don't think I'm that demanding of what I need. And I think that I know that I'm loved and that this person who is doing these things for me is doing it out of love. And so I don't feel bad about that.
Okay,
Good.
beautiful, beautiful.
Good. Scott, how about you? Do you ever feel squashed sometimes in terms of someone doing too much for you?
No, I've been blessed that way. Chandra's very patient with me, and she promotes. She'll even speak up if somebody's trying to do too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
She promotes me being efficient as much as I can. I mean,
Cool.
she'll guide me, but I'm lucky that way.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. Paulan, any last words from you?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Okay. How about you, Scott?
No, I don't have. This was a wonderful discussion. Thank you, but I would like to ask Pauline and
Geert?
how do you pronounce your name?
Geert.
Yes. Could you guys send me a link of where I can purchase your books or find out more about the books that you wrote?
I really appreciate that. When I don't know, Laurie, how we do that. How I can get the address from Scott.
Okay, if you put it in the chat box, both of you, we can get that to Scott. Otherwise, you can email me too. And
Okay.
Paulan, yours is on Amazon, isn't it?
It is on Amazon, and it's under my name, Paulan Gordon. It's spelled PAULANGORDON. And if you just do a search under my name, you will find it.
Okay.
Okay, it's beautiful, beautiful. Maybe Laurie, you can help me when you give me a mail from the address from the name from Paulan and Scott.
Sure, I can do that. And then is yours on Amazon too?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, I will get that to everybody on that. So good. Geert, anything else that you want to say?
You know, I feel so honored and happy. I met Paulan and Scott. I met you, of course, also. But really, I appreciate that. I will tell all my friends how beautiful this conversation was. I hope we can stay in contact a bit, Scott and Paulan, if possible. I would like to correspondent with you, to write with you, if you like also. I like that. I want to listen to you more.
Okay. Well, you have a lot to offer. I would say the same about you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Thank you.
And thank you, Lori, as always, for putting these things together. I think it helps everybody.
Thanks everyone
Bye,
for listening.
Bye,
Yeah.
bye, friends. Bye, bye.
Bye bye. See you later.
Bye, bye. All right. See you later. Yes.